welcome back. Oh, I'm sorry, was that too loud? Welcome back, everyone. Episode 21, Performance. So, the episode starts off with another impromptu meeting between the 7 remaining members of the Yotsuba group.
We just received a new report from Coil. He says that Misa Amane might know L. My recommendation is that Yotsuba use her for the next ad campaign and take the opportunity to extract information about L.
So with this, it's confirmed that they have, in fact, decided to go ahead with Ryuzaki's plan of having Misa infiltrate the Yotsuba group via being their brand ambassador. While Oe continues listing off information from Coil's report, we get this interesting little moment.
He says, I've been able to deduce that Amane worships Kira.
And it's just like, okay, so we're just not hiding it anymore. But we'll get to that in just a second. So Oe expresses his frustration with the report, claiming,
it's unacceptable if you ask me.
And I get where he's coming from. Both he and Namikawa actually end up expressing their irritation over the fact that they're paying this man a whole lot of money and he's asking them to do a considerable amount of work themselves. Anyway, this prompts Kira to suggest reaching out to Coil in order to express their feelings about him taking a more hands-on approach, which leads to Ivor giving us a little grin. But we'll come back to why that's important in just a second. So we head back to Kira's house, and if it wasn't obvious before, let's be clear that they're just not really hiding it anymore.
Being Kira is so time-consuming.
And yeah, Higuchi is Kira. The voice belongs to him. The silhouette, which was left ambiguous back in episode 17, is now just literally his hair and facial structure, minus his eyes. And you might be wondering why this was done in such an anticlimactic way. Like, why are they just suddenly making it obvious that he is Kira? I know I was. It just didn't make any sense to me. But that's when I realized that the reason it's happening this way is a direct result of this being an adaptation of a manga. What I mean by that is, in a manga, when a person speaks, we can't hear their voice. So that gives the manga the ability to keep Kira's identity a secret as long as they don't show any of his features. However, the anime doesn't have this luxury because, well, people talk. People have distinct voices that are easy to recognize. For example,
I'll give you this strawberry if you keep it a secret, okay?
Even with a blank screen, the majority of you could probably recognize who that was. Now, I will give the anime credit for getting around this issue when he was first introduced by just having Rim say everything while he just smiled and wrote names, whereas in the manga, the two had a bit of a dialogue. But in this scene, because there's important information that needs to be presented to us right now, they have no choice but to just roll with it and have it mostly be revealed that Higuchi is Kira. So yeah, it's not ideal, obviously, but their hands were tied, so I can't even really be mad about it. A secret like this could really only work in the manga. But anyway, while we're still on the topic of episode 17, I want to go back and take a look at the end of that episode, when we were first introduced to the Yotsuba group. Something I didn't really take into consideration at the time was how the signs that Higuchi was Kira were there even then. I've said it once, and I'll say it again, all of them are essentially hostages who are under the impression that someone amongst them is Kira. So tell me how it makes any sense to say something like this.
You have a lot to say considering how stupid you are.
Like, only Kira could feel comfortable saying something like that to another person in this group. No one who values their life would risk calling another person here stupid because that person could possibly be Kira. Not to mention the fact that he immediately follows it up with,
I'd hate to see you get killed because of it.
So not only is he the only person who blatantly disrespects other people here, he's also the only one who's ever called someone out for potentially being Kira's next victim. Twice, because as you all remember, I told you that Kira was the one who explicitly called out Hattori in episode 19.
Hattori, I think you're going to end up dead tomorrow.
And sure, you could say that him telling Takahashi that was just a joke, but what about this situation makes you feel comfortable making a joke like that? And on top of that, I wanted to continue with what I had mentioned in my previous video regarding body language, specifically Higuchi's body language in comparison to the other members of the Yotsuba group. Because where all of them tend to be very, I don't know if rigid is the right word, but I definitely say that they're, at the very least, reserved in their demeanor, often only appearing with their arms at their sides or crossed in front of them. Meanwhile, Higuchi's often depicted as being much more relaxed or unbothered about the entire situation, with things like leaning back in his chair while threatening to kill people, casually throwing his hands up and crossing his legs while criticizing Kira, smiling while explaining how knowledgeable he is about how accidental deaths work. He's just oddly comfortable with everything in a way that no other person here is, and when you throw that in the pile of all the other shit he's done, it just becomes really clear that he was Kira all along. And hell, the cherry on top is the fact that at the very end of episode 17, when Shimada suggests that one of the men in this room is Kira, and we get this moment where the camera zooms in on each of their faces, Higuchi is actually the first person to speak.
No matter how you look at it, one of the people in this room has to be Kira.
So, who should we have Kira eliminate this week?
So, in retrospect, when we look at all the things he said and done in these meetings, we can see how clear it was that Higuchi is Kira. But yeah, moving back to the current episode, we get Higuchi claiming that it's obvious that Misa must have been the second Kira and that L must have caught her. But what I really found interesting was when he said,
"The only way she could have gotten out of that situation is by forfeiting ownership of her Death Note and losing all memories of what she did with it."
And it's like, why did Rim tell him about that aspect of the Death Note? How much has she told him about the Death Note exactly? Like, the reason I'm bringing this up is because the rule in episode 7 stated that Shinigami are not obligated to tell human owners anything about how the Death Note works. So why give him information that he doesn't need to know when you're just using him to save Misa and Light? Like, the extent of his knowledge should be relegated to the original 5 rules that Ryuk had written in the notebook that Light had. Anything else is just giving him unnecessary extra context, which could potentially make things more difficult for everyone. Because, I mean, Light's plan is to get the Death Note back, right? So what good would it do his plan if Higuchi knows that he can relinquish ownership and he just so happens to do that shortly before he's caught? But, whatever. Higuchi then says something, pretty surprising.
"I'm going to make Misa Amane my wife. Once we're married, I'll just invest a large lump sum in her life insurance."
So that's a choice, and it gets even weirder because he goes on to explain that he wants
money, power, and a beautiful wife.
And that those 3 things would be enough to make anyone envious. But then he also wants to kill his wife? Like, what are you talking about, man? I don't think people are envious of widowers, my guy. And you might be thinking, well, he didn't explicitly say that, but it's like, what other reason would you have for doing that? Like, Misa is a healthy young woman. Why would you need to, and I quote, invest a large lump sum in her life insurance? This man definitely plans on killing her, which, I mean, the more I think about it, the weirder this seems. Like, you want to tie your life to someone who was investigated for being the second Kira? Like, why? Why would you do that? Is she really just that much of a baddie? Because it seems like everyone wants to smash. Well, almost everyone. Regardless, it just doesn't make any sense for Higuchi to want that kind of potential exposure. Because even if she isn't currently being investigated, which, I mean, as we know, she still is, the fact that she ever was, and that you intend on killing her after marrying her, would just bring attention to you that you just don't really need. I mean, because of Coil's report, you should already be working under the assumption that L might have picked up on the connection between Yotsuba and Kira. So, do you just not think L would take note of the fact that someone from Yotsuba has suddenly married Misa Amane, the person they believe to be the second Kira? Like, that's more than just a coincidence, my guy.
She would never marry such a disgusting fool.
Well, Rim, Misa doesn't exactly have the best taste in men, but I get where you're coming from. And I can definitely understand why that might be a cause for concern, especially for you. Because if anything goes wrong with what Light has planned, this man might very well try to kill Misa. And while you could definitely save her from that fate, that would ultimately result in your death. Because as was established back in episode 12 and further explained by a lot of y'all in the comment section for episode 19, there's no way for Rim to save Misa without ultimately getting herself killed in the process. So yeah, if Rim were to do that, then there would be no backup plan in place to ensure that Light's plan goes through the way it's supposed to. So it is a bit of a concern that Higuchi is considering using the Death Note on Misa. But Rim is taking steps to ensure that that doesn't happen. And so after Higuchi leaves his office, Rim decides to rip out a small piece of the notebook. And we'll get into what exactly this means for Misa and Rim in just a moment. So we transition back to Task Force headquarters, where Misa is getting ready for her interview with the Yotsuba group. And it could be going better, apparently.
Is it true you once said that you came to Tokyo in order to meet Kira?
What?
But something worth pointing out is that Ivor is the one conducting the interview. This is why he was smiling when he got that call from Kira earlier in the episode. You see, the Yotsuba group bringing Coil in was a part of Ryuzaki's plan from the start, as having Coil conduct the interview with Misa gives the task force the opportunity to plan out exactly what questions they'll ask, as well as giving Misa the opportunity to go over her responses. It's actually kinda cool how easily they manipulated the Yotsuba group into doing exactly what they wanted. Again. The only issue they're running into right now is getting Misa to take things seriously.
Whatever you say, oh so great director.
If you don't get serious about this, I'll kick you.
Well, I've seen this dude kick, and if I were Misa, I would very much not want to be on the receiving end of that. So, yeah. We then transition to some time in the future as Misa and her new manager, Mogi, acting under the alias Konichi Moji, are driving to her interview. And in this one scene, we get more lines out of Mogi than we've gotten in the last 17 episodes. Like, for real, he hasn't spoken this much since he was introduced back in episode 3, and at the time, we didn't even know his name. But anyway, he's going all out with his persona, choosing to portray himself as being very high energy.
Misa-Misa!
And I dig it. Anyway, this scene is mostly inconsequential, basically just there to provide a little context for what they're about to do, as well as explaining why Mogi is acting the way that he is. Because I imagine seeing him go from being a fly on the wall to saying shit like,
"Good luck, Misa-Misa!"
would probably raise some eyebrows without some context. Anyway, they get in the building and introductions or reintroductions are made, and Misa is whisked away to her interview, leaving old Mogi behind to contemplate his career choices.
I don't think I'm cut out for this.
Now, luckily for Misa, she won't be alone in this interview because Ivor, or rather Geraldo Coyle, or rather John Wallace, is the one conducting this meeting, as they had planned.
We've pretty much decided to hire you already. But before we make it official, we'd like to clarify a few things.
So that's a really smart way to go about this, as not to make all of this feel weird. Because, to be clear, it is a little strange. I was thinking that the idea of the Yotsuba group bringing her in just to ask her questions about Elle would be kinda awkward to do during an interview for what is essentially a modeling position. If you were going to broach the topic, it would need to be done tactfully, and this is a really good way to make it feel more natural. They can just come right out of the gate by telling her that she basically has the job, but add that they're a little concerned about some stuff in her past, and for the sake of transparency, they'd like a little more clarification on those things as not to potentially hire someone who might end up being bad for their brand. It makes total sense when you look at it from that perspective. I mean, you know, as long as they don't get too personal.
According to our sources, a burglar killed your parents during a robbery.
Well, damn. Okay. Imagine going into a job interview and the first question they hit you with is regarding the death of your parents. And not even like they died of old age or something. No, let's talk about how your parents got fucking murdered. Like, okay. Anyway, they go on to discuss how she's gone on record saying that she worships Kida because he was the one to kill that burglar, which, I mean, that makes sense. If I were in her position, I'd probably be grateful to Kida as well, especially considering the fact that, according to Misa, the dude was probably gonna get off for it.
The trial dragged on forever. Opinions started surfacing that he was being falsely accused.
So, I'm not even gonna lie, I'd probably be praising Kida too. But anyway, Coyle ends up asking if it's true that the only reason she came to Tokyo was in hopes of finding and meeting Kida. And to Misa's credit, she plays her role well enough, responding by avoiding the question itself and instead asking where he got that information from. To which Coyle says he's not able to reveal his sources, but that he now feels confident in it being true given the way Misa just responded.
The look in your face tells me that these are the facts.
And I like Misa's body language here. She's really selling the fact that not only did she not expect this to come up in an interview, but she's also clearly not comfortable discussing it. So kudos to her on that.
Coyle, I never thought you investigated that far.
So, two things. One, it's a good thing that Coyle is continuing to impress them, because this will make them all the more confident in his skills, which means they'll continue working with him, and subsequently, they'll continue to unwittingly bankroll the investigation into them. And secondly, I like the detail of Shimura, Oi, and Mito all turning to Coyle after he says this, implying that they're all impressed. However, Higuchi has not taken his eyes off Misa because, I mean, he doesn't care about Coyle or this interview. His only interest right now is her. But yeah, Coyle starts kicking things up a notch by implying that he has knowledge that she's been keeping a secret from the general public, going on to say that they know that she had been detained by Elle and that they now need her to explain the full story behind what happened with that, adding,
"It would be a problem if the new face of Yotsuba turned out to be Kira."
And like I said earlier, when they frame it like that, I mean, you really can't blame them for inquiring as to what happened.
I understand. I'll tell you everything.
And so she does. I mean, at least the part dealing with her incarceration. In addition to that, she makes it clear,
I'm not the second Kira, and I never was.
But yeah, once she's finished telling her story and explaining herself, the Yotsuba group members, not yet satisfied, continue to push her for more information.
Did you manage to see who it was that was restraining you?
If he asked you questions, surely you heard his voice, right?
And look, I get it, y'all want information, but it is getting to be a bit much for what is supposed to be a job interview, which is exactly why Higuchi ends up interjecting with,
"What the hell is this anyway? A job interview or a police interrogation?"
And I mean, to be honest,
he has a point.
And yeah, they end up taking a quick break and Misa heads to the restroom so she can have a moment to herself, or at least what she thinks will be a moment to herself.
Hello. You?
And just like that, the two are reunited. Well, kinda.
Being touched by this scrap of paper alone will not restore her memories of the Death Note, but at least now Misa can see me.
And that's an interesting concept, the bit about memories, but it's not one that we can really get into right now unless we spoil some things. But trust me, we'll talk at length about it, eventually. However, for now, let's talk about this scrap of paper that Rim took out of Higuchi's Death Note, because, like, why would you do that? And I'm saying that because, look, she needed to touch Misa with a piece of the Death Note, right? So why didn't she just use her own? Because as we went over last time, she has one. Just like Ryuk, she had two notebooks when she came to the human world. The one that originally belonged to her, as well as the one that Jealous left behind after he died. She gave Misa the latter, and it's exchanged hands multiple times at this point, but the one that originally belonged to Rim is still with her. So my thing is, if touching her with that scrap wasn't going to restore her memories anyway, then why did you do it like that? You could have very well just slapped her on the back of the head with your own Death Note and it would have had the same effect. It's not a big deal or anything, but it just doesn't make any sense and could potentially lead to unnecessary questions in the future. But anyway, Misa's freaking out, which is totally understandable. Light had the same reaction, and it's kind of a running theme going forward. Regardless, Rim tries to assuage any fears by telling Misa that she's in danger, which, from Misa's perspective, Rim definitely seems like the danger, but Rim goes on to explain that Yotsuba is her real enemy, while trying to keep Misa calm by saying,
"Believe me, I'm your ally."
My ally?
From there, we switch back to the task force where Light is, once again, lost in thought. Though, I do want to point out this line from Matsuda that can be heard in the background.
"I wonder if Misa-Misa's alright. Maybe we should have wired her."
And it's interesting to think how different things might have played out had they done that, because I'm doubting Rim took that into consideration when she grabbed Misa. And you know what? When I think about it, Rim doesn't know anything about Misa's intentions here. She's warning her, but Misa already knows that these dudes are up to no good. But we'll get back to that in just a second. So, as I was saying, Light is lost in thought once again, going over data regarding Kira's victims before and after his own incarceration. He goes on to state that this new Kira is going after anyone accused or convicted of a crime, regardless of the circumstances.
He's punishing people who never intended to kill, those who sincerely regretted their crimes, or people with excusable circumstances.
And it's interesting because we never really saw that aspect of Light's decision-making process back when he was Kira. We would just see people dropping like flies at the stroke of his pen. And I'm not knocking it for that. I mean, it makes sense. There was a lot of other shit going on that warranted our attention as the audience, so we didn't have moments where we saw him researching criminals to find evidence to see if their crime was somehow justified or something. But it's interesting to think that he made those kinds of distinctions, that he would take into account accidental killings, or people who regretted their crimes, or excusable circumstances, which I imagine is like killing someone in self-defense or something. And while Light has done some pretty reprehensible things, evil things, really, I can also kind of believe that he wouldn't kill people who had unique circumstances, unless they were directly in his way. Because the Kid train don't stop for nobody, and will run right through you if need be.
The way the original Kid acted is disturbingly close to my ideals. What the hell am I thinking? I'm not Kira.
I really like seeing this conflict within him, because he's not like Misa. Misa's memories were wiped, and now she's just 100% sure that she both never was and never interacted with Kira. But Light's smart enough to realize that something's off. He can analyze the data and come to the conclusion that the current Kira is a completely different person than the original, just as he can see the actions of the original Kira and understand that they seem to fall in line with his own sense of justice. But in the end, he always manages to convince himself that it simply cannot be, that he cannot be Kira, that it's insane to even think that that's a possibility. And, I mean, I don't blame him, especially since he has absolutely no memory regarding it. It's just really interesting to see him get right to the edge of realizing it before pulling himself back and convincing himself that he's crazy for even thinking it. And in that same vein, I feel like it also kind of makes sense as to why he gets so riled up anytime Ryuzaki tells him that he still thinks he's Kira. I think it frustrates him because deep down inside, he understands where Ryuzaki is coming from, but he just doesn't want to accept that as the truth. It's almost like he's lashing out because he's in denial about it. But hey, that's just a theory. Anyway, last thing I want to point out is this awesome little transition as we head back to Misa and Rim.
I'm not Kira.
Light Yagami is Kira.
Love it. Anyway, Rim lets Misa go, and after Misa questions who and what she is, Rim goes on to say that before she lost her memories, the two of them were a modern-day Thelma and Louise. Before going on to explain everything to Misa. The Death Note, Light being Kira, Misa being the second Kira, making sure to pump her girl up a little by adding,
in fact, your ability was even greater than his.
And yeah, the only thing about her speech that isn't true is when she says,
Light arranged it so you would both lose this power. This was all according to his plan.
Because, no, he didn't plan for that. That was your idea. Light told Misa not to say anything if she got brought in for questioning, but he didn't tell her to forfeit ownership, because if that was the case, she would have done that instead of trying to bite off her tongue back in episode 15. You were the one that suggested that she should give up ownership in an attempt to prevent her from trying that again.
Misa, forfeit ownership of the Death Note.
So, I mean, give yourself credit, Rim. That was all you.
I totally believe you now. Not to mention how amazing it is that Light and I were both Kira.
I want to say it's insane that this is her reaction, but, I mean, as Rim states herself,
you haven't changed, Misa.
And while you think that all she's been through might have done something to her, you would be wrong. For whatever reason, she has remained the same. She is the definition of a static character. But I'm not going to harp on it. Misa has heard the story, and just like that, she's right back on her bitty bullshit. Anyway, from there, Rim tells her that she wants to continue being her ally, and for that reason, she will help her by showing her who the new Kira is. She also goes in on him a little bit, calling him vile and pathetic. She really does not like this man, and to be fair, I could totally understand why. Dude honestly seems like a straight up asshole. Anyway, Rim tells Misa that when she returns to the interview, she will be standing directly behind the new Kira.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry it took so long.
You know what? Props to Misa for keeping her cool when she gets back, because she is juggling quite a bit right now. Not only is she supposed to be acting alongside Ivor in order to trick the dudes from Yotsuba, but she's doing it while also processing the fact that she was, in fact, the second Kira, and that one of the men she's being interviewed by is the current Kira. Not to mention the fact that Rim just told her that she specifically is in danger, and shit, just the fact that Rim is lurking in the back of the room. Like, Misa's had all of 5 minutes to contend with this life-altering, reality-shattering news that Shinigami are real, and she used to be besties with one. She's dealing with a lot, so kudos to her ability to compartmentalize, I guess.
The person in front of you is Kira. Higuchi's Kira?
And I guess we can say that this is the official reveal, so yeah. Anyway, Misa is now aware of who Kira is, but the real question is, what's she gonna do with that information? I guess we'll find out soon enough, but first, as always, let's dive back into how to use it. First up, exchanging and writing on the Death Note between the gods of death is no problem. Pretty straightforward. It just means that there's no problem swapping notebooks. But it is kind of interesting to think about. I say that because, I mean, the fact that you can share and swap means that even if a Shinigami does lose their Death Note in the human world and a human happens to pick it up, that Shinigami could just borrow someone else's Death Note and write that human's name down that way. Because Ryuk threatened to do that back in episode 9.
You know, I might actually write your name in my Death Note and kill you.
So if one of them ever dropped their notebook, then they could just hit up one of their friends and be like, "Hey bro, can I kill this dude real quick so I can get my notebook back?" And they should be like, "Easy, done, I got you." Dropping notebooks and sticking with whoever picks them up seems kind of silly, honestly, when you realize that this is a thing that they can do. Unless they're all just complete assholes, which, shit, maybe they are. But honestly, even if they are assholes about it, who's to say you couldn't just grab their shit while they're sleeping or playing games and just jot that person's name down real quick? It's not like these things are password protected or anything. It would take all of 5 seconds to do it and then put it back. But whatever. Next up, if the god of death decides to use the Death Note to kill the assassin of an individual he favors, the individual's life will be extended, but the god of death will die. And shit, it's the actual rule for what happened with Jealous. I wouldn't have thought of that stalker as an assassin, but I mean, he was there to kill Misa, so it fits. But anyway, we find ourselves back at Task Force headquarters where Misa and Mogi are getting back from the interview. And Misa is, well, she's still Misa.
Hey! I'm exhausted.
Hey.
But it's fascinating watching her operate, because she comes across like such a vapid woman, but there's gotta be at least a modicum of intelligence in there, because a stupid person couldn't just come in here and be deceitful like this. Misa is now aware that both she and Lights were Kira, and yet she's just strolling in here like nothing's changed. That takes a certain level of skill, in my opinion, because it's not like she just kind of forgot about what happened. No, she's actively thinking about it and has concocted a whole ass plan for how to catch Higuchi. So, I don't know, man, her stats fluctuate in ways that I just cannot properly discern. Anyway, after Mogi goes on to relay that Misa has been chosen to be Yotsuba's spokesperson for their next ad campaign, Misa goes on to say that she made sure to give all of the Yotsuba members her phone number, also mentioning that 3 out of the 7 men have already hit her up asking her for a date. And something I want to point out is the chief's reaction to her saying this.
Would you believe 3 out of 7 guys already messaged me asking for a private date?
What?
Like, why does he make that face? He looks annoyed as hell, and it's absolutely hilarious. Anyway, she goes on to say that she plans on accepting their invitations and investigating them one by one, adding,
"Oh, it's going exactly as I planned."
And if that plan really was her idea, then that's actually pretty impressive. I mean, we know that Ryuzaki wanted her to get close to them through that interview, but it seems as though she might have come up with the idea of giving out her personal number so that they'd reach out to her for dates. And if that's the case, then, well, damn. Like, again, what is up with her intelligence? Big brain moves like this one and what she did to discover light back in episode 13 make me want to say that she's just secretly really smart. That this whole dumb persona thing that she has going on is just that. A persona used to hide her intelligence because, I don't know, maybe she believes that acting like this will get her further in life since she's a model, as opposed to acting like a know-it-all. Or maybe she acts dumb so that people will underestimate her, only for her to then use that against them. Or maybe I'm just reaching. Because as much as I want to believe that she's some secret genius, you have shit like what happened in episode 15 with her coming to Light School after being explicitly told not to. And then there's the whole thing with her getting caught because she left strands of her hair and food crumbs on the packaging for those tapes that she sent into Sakura TV. And that's when you realize that she's just Misa, which can mean anything ranging from a love-struck idiot to a very cunning criminal. Just depends on the episode, really. But yeah, Misa goes on to explain her plan, but Light's like, nah, I'm not having you do all that. And it's for the same reasons as before, keeping her safe and whatnot, which I can respect. But something interesting that happens this time is, upon Light making that request, Misa doesn't push back.
If that's what you want, Light, then that's what I'll do.
Which is not common for Misa at all. She's not one to fold if she feels like she's right. In fact, she's typically one to push pretty hard until she gets what she wants. But that lack of pushback is something that Ryuzaki notices, though he doesn't say anything about it.
You're so sweet to be worried about me, but I've thought of the best plan ever. I'm gonna be useful to you. I promise.
And I love this more serious version of her character. She's about her shit. All the bubbly, fun energy she puts off is just a mask. This is who she is under the surface, and I dig it. It kind of reminds me of how duplicitous she was when she talked about tricking her friend into sending those tapes back in episode 13. She can be really cunning at times.
Wanna come sleep with me tonight?
What are you talking about?
So as wild as Misa is for saying this shit, especially in front of Light's father, what I find especially interesting about this is Light's reaction. Light's used to having women throw themselves at him. In fact, he's used that to his advantage on more than one occasion. However, with his memories gone, his reaction to the attention is very different. Where before he would be almost annoyed by how thirsty these women were, now he seems legitimately caught off guard by Misa's proposition. It's interesting how an aspect of him losing his memories is that he, apparently, isn't as confident with the ladies as he used to be. Like, he sounds so confused that I wonder if he even knows that she's trying to bust it open for him.
What are you talking about?
She's saying she wants to fuck, my guy. Jeez. Also, now just imagining the chief over there just fuming. I mean, to be fair, Misa is wild for saying that in front of Light's dad and the rest of the task force. And even crazier that she followed it up with,
"You're saving it for after we catch Kira, right? You don't have to be shy about it."
Like, damn, girl, just letting everybody know that she's gonna turn this dude out once they wrap this investigation up.
Yes, Light, there's no need to be shy.
This man is such a troll. Also, I bet money that the Chad Ryuzaki would have dived right in if Misa had a proposition to him, even with Light still chained to him. But, alright, so we flash forward to the following evening where Misa is finishing up filming for the day, and after meeting up with Mogi, she asks if he can take her to the hospital across the street so that she can use the restroom real quick. Mogi agrees, and after Misa changes into something a little less conspicuous, likely because she doesn't want to deal with the same situation that happened in episode 15 when they were at Light School, the two head to the hospital and then she heads into the restroom. But Misa ain't really trying to use the restroom. Instead, she has her friend waiting for her in one of the stalls so that the two of them can swap places. Yeah, Misa's out here with a whole ass plan, complete with disguises and everything. It's impressive, I'm not gonna lie. And it works, because Mogi is none the wiser as she walks out of the bathroom and on her way to a date with none other than the man himself.
By the way, loving that nurse's outfit, Misa.
I'm glad you like it.
This dude is just mad creepy. Like, just look at him. Dude's face is like the textbook definition of punctuable. But anyway, back in the hospital, Misa's friend comes out of the restroom, and while Misa might have gotten by without Mogi noticing, her friend isn't so lucky, as Mogi immediately notices that this is a completely different person.
Where's Misa?
She's on a date.
You gotta be kidding.
And I honestly feel bad for this dude because she straight up ditched him. But anyway, we then head back to Misa and Higuchi.
Higuchi, the sleazy pervert who's been sending me text messages ever since that party.
So at first I thought this was an oversight, given how Misa said just yesterday that she had only given her number out to them after the meeting. But it could just be that Higuchi managed to use his connections to get her number without her consent and has been texting her since the party, which, I mean, yeah, I could totally believe that. Anyway, Misa's disgusted by this dude, but she'll do anything for Light, and I do mean anything.
Are you planning to do pervy things to me? Well, even if you are, that's okay.
Giggity.
Just kidding. What she actually said was,
well, even if you are, that's okay. I'll be fine, since I can kill people.
And, what? Even Rim's in the backseat like,
what are you saying, Misa?
Also, I can't help but laugh at Rim just being stuffed back there in the backseat, looking mad uncomfortable. I mean, she's like 8 feet tall. Misa should have totally given her shotgun. But anyway.
Is this your way of telling me that you want me to kill Higuchi the moment he tries to do anything?
It's interesting because Misa doesn't know what the extent of her relationship with Rim was, but she's banking on the fact that Rim will understand what to do if and when the moment presents itself. It's a wild gamble because, as we can see, Rim is like, what the hell is going on? And honestly, her immediate jump to killing Higuchi would not be in Misa's favor. At all. That would look mad suspicious if he just randomly died after she escaped her chaperone. It would look like she just went out on a stroll to randomly murder somebody real quick, and then she would be right back where she was a couple months ago, back in that dungeon with old Stan Lee.
Excelsior!
Anyway, Higuchi laughs her threat off, but Misa doubles down.
It's true, and you know why? Because I'm the second Kira.
Okay, Misa, I'm gonna let you cook, but this is getting real weird real fast, because what the fuck are you doing? Like, maybe it's just because I'm an overly cautious person, but if I were Higuchi, I would think this was mad suspicious. Like, yesterday you were denying that you had any involvement with Kira, but now you're just coming out and saying that you are the second Kira? And why tell me? Why now? What's to stop me from firing you as a client, or worse yet, going to the police and reporting you? Why would you open yourself up to that kind of risk? This just feels weird, and I feel like it should be obvious to him that something's off here. And to be fair, he does question it to himself, claiming it shouldn't be possible for her to currently be the second Kira, even if she was previously, working off his theory that L released her because she had relinquished ownership of the Death Note. But two things about that. One, just because she forfeited ownership doesn't mean that she couldn't have gotten her Death Note back. And secondly, you're focusing on the wrong thing because, my guy, why would this woman just up and tell you this? She has absolutely nothing to gain and everything to lose by revealing that she is Kira. It just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, he then goes on to play it off as a joke by laughing and saying,
you don't have to make up stuff like that to feel safe with me.
But even that would be weird on her behalf because she responded to you saying she would be willing to go out with you. You had apparently been hounding her since that party and she gave you no play, but now she's agreed to hang out with you and even let you pick her up, meaning she's completely at your mercy. She can't feel that unsafe with you. But anyway, even with him trying to play it off, Misa doesn't drop the issue, instead tripling down by saying,
I'll only prove that I'm the second Kira to the real Kira.
Which just, I mean, this just feels like a trap, dude. Like, ask yourself, why is she harping on Kira so much? You didn't even ask her to prove it, but she's just randomly saying she will prove it to the real Kira? She's being aggressive, and you should be curious as to why. But alas, he's hyper-focused on the how instead of the why. Which, don't get me wrong, I get it. He's confused as to how she could still be operating as the second Kira, and that's worth finding out, but not at the cost of not even acknowledging why this is all happening all of a sudden. But he entertains the idea and asks why she would only prove it to the real Kira, and she responds with,
"I'd show him because it's always been my dream to become Kira's wife."
And at this point, it's become clear exactly what her goal is. She said it before, dude's been mad persistent in trying to get in them draws, and for her to say that she's trying to bust it wide open for Kira, shit, it's a wrap, y'all. If he wasn't thinking clearly before, then the extra blood rushing to his crotch definitely isn't going to help the situation.
Well, since I happen to be Kira, does that mean you'll marry me?
See? Told you. Though, to be fair, he did give it some thought before blurting that out, and one of those thoughts was,
"It's pretty clear from the Sakura TV incident that she has the Shinigami eyes."
Which, Rim, why did you tell him about the damn eyes? Again, you are not obligated to share anything. You're just potentially causing problems that don't need to exist. Anyway, after nervously blurting that out, I'd say nervously given the sweat marks on his face, he waits for a response. And Misa gives a convincing one.
Really?
Yeah. I mean it.
Anyway, Misa tries to convince Higuchi to use his power, but to his credit, he's like, fuck that.
It'd be a pretty bad idea to let someone witness how I kill people.
Which is 100% true. Furthermore, if anything, right now he can still pass off his claiming to be Kira as him being weird, like he was trying to impress her or something. But yeah, Misa finally caves and says she'll go first, but adds that it has to be a bad person, which prompts Higuchi to pull over, whip out his laptop, and present her with a picture of a man named Ginzo Kaneboshi, a dude known for his unsavory business practices. Anyway, Misa tells him to look away as she turns to the side and pretends to write, which prompts Rim to think,
Misa, you want me to kill Ginzo Kaneboshi, don't you?
Which, lucky for her that she and Rim have such a good rapport, despite the fact that she doesn't really know shit about Rim. This was a risky move. Honestly, all of it was, but still, this was perhaps the most risky part because she had no way of knowing what Rim would or even could do. I don't remember Rim telling her that she still had a notebook that she could use, but let's just assume that happened off screen. Even with that knowledge, it still doesn't mean Rim would know to use it now. She is some otherworldly creature, and I know I keep using this dude as an example, but she could very well be like Drax and unable to pick up on cues the way that humans do. I mean, there's precedent for Shinigami being kinda daft when it comes to picking up on sarcasm and metaphors.
I might have seriously considered the deal if you'd offered me wings instead of eyes.
You'd stand out if you sprouted wings and flew around.
But while it was a hell of a gamble, it ultimately paid off, because when Higuchi makes the call, this happens.
Hello, this is Higuchi from Yotsuba.
Sorry, our president just collapsed and stopped breathing. Call back later.
And yeah, that was all the proof he needed. And, then shit gets really weird.
This proves it.
So that was a lot. Like, I thought I was watching episode 1 for a second. Like, dial it back a bit, my guy.
If I'm Kira, you'll marry me.
Why are you getting so serious all of a sudden?
She's gotta be terrified, man. This dude has her pinned down. That's a lot. Also, I wonder what Rim is doing. I don't know why, but I'm just imagining her pen in hand halfway through writing this dude's first name down. Or, actually, maybe not. I mean, she can see Misa's lifespan and can probably determine that he doesn't plan on killing her right now. Though, if he had other plans, like that dude from episode 1, would she still kill him? I mean, she could, right? In that instance, he wouldn't be an assassin, and therefore he could be killed without repercussions for her. Unless the comments he made about the life insurance had an effect on Misa's lifespan because he intends on killing her at some time in the future. But then I imagine he'd have to have actually written it down in the notebook first, and he hasn't done that. And now that I think about it, doesn't the Death Note spontaneously interrupt the person's... You know what? I'm going down a rabbit hole. Where was I?
I'm Kira.
Then prove it.
Ah, yes. Well, Higuchi goes on to say that he won't be able to kill anyone until he gets home, which makes sense. It's been shown to us that he keeps his Death Note at his home office. But yeah, after he says that, Misa responds with...
Well, that's no good then. For all I know, you're just making all this up so you have an excuse to take me to your place.
And it's weird how much the energy changed in just a few seconds. Like, he had her pinned down and she was kind of freaking out, and now, for whatever reason, she seems to be in control of the situation. It's fine, don't get me wrong. Misa's already been through more than enough trauma for a lifetime, but it's interesting how quickly he just kind of caved. She was even able to push him off with like no effort. Like, why did you even approach her with that energy if you were just gonna fold like that? That being said, good for her for not taking his shit. Anyway, since he's unable to prove it by killing anyone, which lucky for her he didn't bring the notebook I guess, she tells him to refrain from killing anyone until she says otherwise. Which is an interesting request, but one that will work well to appease everyone. And you might be wondering why I said everyone. Well, that's because...
Alright, Misa.
I'm Kira.
And yeah, Misa was recording that whole thing. Well, not the whole thing. There's actually a quick transition to her pocket after she pushes Higuchi off of her, showing that she was fumbling with something, which turns out to have been her phone. It was really smart, actually. Lucky too, don't get me wrong, all of this kind of just worked out for her despite her being so heavy-handed, but still, I won't discredit the fact that it was a smart plan. And she was also smart enough not to implicate herself, as she made sure not to record the part where she killed someone. So, I gotta give her credit. It was a wild-ass plan, but it paid off. Because, just like that, everyone now knows that...
Higuchi is Kira!
And hell, on top of him outright admitting to being Kira, he also goes on to state that he'll prove it by refraining from killing criminals for the time being, which still serves in giving Light and his father exactly what they wanted. So really, it's kind of an absolute win all around, and Matsuda is quick to give Misa her kudos.
That's amazing, Misa-Misa!
However, it becomes apparent pretty quickly that the excitement doesn't seem to be shared by everyone, and that seems to be especially true of Ryuzaki. But we'll have to see what they think about all of this when we dive into the next episode. So for now, we'll leave Misa with her W because, I mean, she definitely earned it. And roll credits. Anyway, that's the end of this episode. If you liked this video, then consider dropping a like. If you really liked it, then consider subscribing. And if you just loved it and want to see more sooner, then consider joining the Patreon. You could even wind up being featured in one of these videos. Anyway, that's it for this time. Until next week, friends. Peace. So I wanted to take a moment to discuss the poll that I had put in the community tab coming off of my analysis of episode 20. In it, I basically asked you all where you stood in regard to the idea of letting the Yotsuba group carry out their executions versus going ahead and immediately arresting them. I ended up splitting it up into two, or, well, I guess 3 choices. Team Yagami, which was the act now approach, Team Ryuzaki, which was the wait and see approach, and Team I don't give a fuck, which was just for the people who wanted to press a button. So, firstly, thank you to all 2,400 plus of you who took the time to vote, as well as the 100 plus of you who went ahead and provided some additional insight on why you chose the way that you did. Now, this might sound kind of silly in retrospect, but I was honestly expecting this to be a lot closer. But that couldn't have been further from the truth. Hell, there were more people who just wanted to press a button than who sided with the chief and Light. But let's take a look at some of the reasons y'all gave in regard to why you chose Team Ryuzaki or Team Yagami. And I'm actually going to start with those that chose Team Yagami because honestly, as someone who chose Team Ryuzaki himself, I was really curious as to what justification y'all might have for why you chose that way. And if I'm being honest, most of the responses were about what I expected, as most of you seem to focus on the moral implications of allowing innocent people to die. And to be fair, I completely understand that. The idea of letting innocent individuals die is, well, it's morally reprehensible. But anyway, I took special interest in the comment left by Capri Productions because they acknowledge that L's plan would deliver results, but they can't deny that letting innocent people die is pretty shitty. Even mentioning Lind L. Taylor and how different we'd feel about that situation if he wasn't a criminal on death row. And I agree with that. Putting him on the chopping block like that would have been completely different if he was just some random innocent person, you know? Furthermore, I also want to highlight both the Decent Gamers 7818 and Wes 4736's comments because they kind of made me reassess my thoughts regarding these meetings. Specifically regarding the fact that OE does explicitly say, who shall we kill? With Wes 4736 going on to say how that's a bit more damning than the example I provided about the girl making a post online about wanting Kira to kill people. I would agree that it does show a level of complicity that perhaps a lawyer could make a case for in regard to prosecuting them. If anything, it would be difficult to argue victimhood while spouting that sort of rhetoric. Not that they aren't victims, since they are pretty much forced to be here at this point, but the prosecution would have a field day with this footage if it was allowed into evidence. Anyway, moving on from Team Yagami, there were quite a few comments supporting Team Ryuzaki's approach, some of which were mini essays on their own, like with Rosestar 1324 and Maritzi 3066. Now, I'll start off by highlighting the top comment, which was from Michael, who echoed my sentiments from the video, while also adding that it's simply a loss needed for the greater good, even arguing that it's not the first time Ryuzaki's come to this conclusion, as he referenced episode 6's debate between Matsuda and Ryuzaki regarding hiding criminals' names. Furthermore, the manga lover Bob and Gabriel made similar comments, acknowledging that while it might be deplorable or it might sound inhuman, at the end of the day,
logic clearly dictates that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Which, in this case, simply means that the potential to save thousands of lives outweighs the cost of a few good men. And honestly, the comments really go on to continue this sentiment for the most part, with Jury bringing up the fact that the task force doesn't even know if Kira is actually a person, mentioning that Kira really could be a Shinigami or a demon out there possessing people and then tossing them aside once they've been caught. Then we have Maxie pointing out that while they love the chief for trying to do the moral thing, Ryuzaki is right because he knows that they need answers for how Kira is doing what he's doing, of which the latter half of Maxie's statement was actually mentioned by quite a few of you. Then you have some of you, like the Uchiha Prodigy, who also echoed some of the statements made in the episode about how arresting them could lead to them all being killed, which would ultimately mean that all of your best leads would suddenly be dead, leaving you right back at square one. But yeah, before I wrap this up, I did want to point out a couple of other things. For starters, I thought Kennedy's comment regarding the Yotsuba group having access to well-funded lawyers was a really good point to make. I watch a lot of Law & Order, and a good lawyer can really get shit done for you. And with the money that these dudes have, they would have the best representation that money could buy, and that is going to make a huge difference in how this plays out in court. And in addition to that, it looks like the poll also got the attention of Solid JJ, who came in with an interesting response. But yeah, thanks for all of you who took the time to vote, comment, and like the poll. It really was insightful, and hopefully I'll be able to do more stuff like this in the future.